Now today we're going very local because, as you know, I've been living in Spain for about 8 years here in Madrid. I'm originally from New Zealand, living here with my wife, Yoli.
And I've recently noticed a few changes in James, in the way he speaks, in the food that he craves, even in his political views.
So today we're going to go and we're going to list out the 11 Spanish habits that I've started acting out, that I've taken to be a part of my life.
And answer the question, is he becoming Spanish?
So venga, let's go. Hey Spain lovers, welcome to Spain Revealed. I'm James Blick.
And I'm Yolanda Martin.
And this channel is all about helping you experience Spain like a local. Okay, so starting off legally. Legally, I am not a Spaniard. I'm a New Zealander. I have a New Zealand passport. I don't have a Spanish passport. In fact, there's no dual citizenship between New Zealand and Spain. So if I was wanting a Spanish passport, I would have to give up my New Zealand passport. I don't want to do that to my mother back in New Zealand. It's bad enough that I've left to the other side of the world.
Yeah.
But the reality is that I may not legally be Spanish, but I've lived here for 8 years, and there's just certain transformations that start to happen. A lot of you guys notice in the comments that you make when you're watching these videos that often when I'm talking about life here in Spain, I say we. I refer to myself as part of the group of Spaniards, and a lot of people, some people criticize me, but most people say this is wonderful, that you feel like you belong so much. And it's true, I feel like I do belong. So while legally I may not be a Spaniard, I'm kind of living the life of a Spaniard, I guess. And so yeah, I'm picking up some habits, right?
Well, I mean, I guess that, you know, when you move countries, there is a process of transformation that you go through. So, you know, I guess that for you, in your case, you know, you were hanging out with locals, you know, also through me, you know, my family, my friends that became your friends, tapas bars as well. So, you know, you acquire, you know, all these habits and all these ways of, you know, speaking and all of this. I guess that when we were living in New Zealand for 4 years together, I, you know, acquired a few habits. Mainly, I became a bit more punctual, and I acquired the taste for Marmite.
That's a very key habit. Marmite is not big in Spain. So if that's kind of the background, well, what are these 11 habits that I've acquired? What is this transformation that's taking place? So should we start with number 1?
Yes.
Habit number 1, I have learned to love the bocadillo de tortilla de patata. Now, when I first got here, I would see the bocadillo tortilla de patata. Bocadillo means a sandwich, big long, you know, thing in a baguette. And you'll have probably heard of the tortilla de patata. In fact, we have a video about the best tortillas de patata in Madrid. But when you come to Spain, you'll see that people eat sandwiches of this kind of potato omelette, big thick one, inside bread. And for me, at the beginning was like, this is nuts. I don't want like a potato sandwich. It's like bread and potatoes are like the same thing or something. I don't want to combine those two things. And then it happened. And then one day I was like, I am craving a tortilla de bocadillo de patata.
Tortilla de bocadillo.
Oh my God, I can't even get the name right. A bocadillo, I'm just thinking about it. A bocadillo de tortilla de patata. And so, and it has to be really gooey, the tortilla de patata, so it's not too hard. And I just, you know, sometimes I crave, particularly if I'm taking a train in the morning, that's my breakfast that I pick up on the way to eat on the train. I love it.
So nutty.
And I love it when they put a red pepper on the top of the tortilla inside the baguette.
It's a green pepper, right?
Oh, is it?
Oh, colorblind.
I'm colorblind, so I think when I don't notice if it's a red pepper or green pepper. It turns out it's a green pepper they put in those sandwiches. I love it with the green pepper.
Green pepper.
It's a good bocadillo, right? What do you think, Yoli?
I mean, it certainly is a pretty weird concept, I think. And I can think of another pretty weird concept in terms of bocadillos in Spain. That is the bocadillo de filete empanado. So take a beef fillet, bread it, fry it, and then put it into a baguette. How weird is that?
I haven't gotten a taste for that one yet, but there's time. And in the next 8 years, that'll be the next step. Okay, habit number 2. I have learned to love polvorones. Now, polvorones comes from the word polvo, which means dust. And these are like little cakes that you eat at Christmas that are literally like clumps of dust, and they're flavored. Obviously, they don't taste like dust, but you put it in your mouth and it just crumbles. And it's like, you know, I've come from a tradition of moist baking and things like this. And these polvorones just turn to dust in your mouth. You choke on it, you need a drink.
It's moist, yeah, exactly, it's moist. You have a glass of water, right?
You have to have the glass of water to make it moist because it's so dusty. And then one Christmas, a couple of years ago, I just fell in love with them, right?
Yeah. All of a sudden, James was like nuts about them, and he was having them like day and night. even for breakfast, which is something that you do not do.
And our friend gave us some.
Yeah, so my friend Sonia's father works in a supermarket, so she just came with a bag full of them, so that
She'd heard about my love for polvorones. And I mean, I think, I don't know if you guys out there have tried them, and I know in other cultures they have similar things, but when you first arrive, you're like, oh my God, this is the most disgusting thing. This is like, but then you just fall in love with it, love them. And we brought one here so you can see them. All right, Yoli, do you want to help me? I'll hold the plate. We need a plate because...
Hey, there it goes. You can see the inside that way. Yeah. Voila.
Ah.
Pretty dusty, huh? Polvoriento. Polvoriento.
That's what they are. And
You want a glass of water?
there's just something about it. You learn to love the dust.
The dust of Spain.
The dust of Spain. All right, polvorones. Can't speak now.
There you go.
Polvorones. Okay, habit number 3, I'm starting to crave seasonal Spanish meals. So winter is coming. We're sitting here in late September, it's getting a bit nippy outside, and I'm starting to dream of cocido madrileño. Now this is a typical Madrid stew. It's hearty, it's meaty, chickpeas, potatoes, all forms of meat that exist, all vegetables, all thrust together. You eat the broth and a big glass of red wine. And that's what I'm starting to think about when I think about winter. I want it so badly. That's what I'm starting to dream of. What about you, Yoli?
I do love a good cocido for sure in winter, but I crave lentil stew, lentejas with chorizo. That's my favorite. So, come like say November and, I find myself in the morning one day thinking, I need a big plate of lentejas.
Maybe,
and I go and cook it.
Maybe that's the next 8 years for me because lentejas, lentils, it reminds me of Neil for the young ones. It was always kind of like hippie food. So I'm not there with the lentils yet. And then of course, when summer comes, I always crave that first sip of horchata. Oh my God, it's the most thirst quenching thing in the world, and it's not made with rice milk, it's made with chufas, tiger nuts, as my brother always says. Poor tigers. All right, moving on. Okay, habit number 4, sticking with food still. We have non-food ones coming up. Another thing that I've started to crave, and that is casqueria, which effectively means offal. And I don't mean awful, I mean offal. O-F-F-A-L. All those offcuts of meat that aren't the sirloins.
Which is awful for a lot of people.
Which is awful for. But here's the thing, this is a big part of the Madrileño diet and the Spanish diet generally. And so what happened is I have never been a fan of callos. Callos are the tripe, the stomach of a cow, and I've never been a big fan. And then what happened is last winter I was sitting working late at Devour Tours. It was really cold, and I was like, do you remember? I think I told you, I was really proud. I was like, I need callos. I need that stickiness that you get between the lips, the meatiness. And there's also just a gooey kind of the stuff, the gooey, I don't even know what it is that makes it very sticky. I don't know what I'm talking about, but it's sticky and gooey. And it was, I was sitting there, I was like, I need callos. And I went down to La Fisna, a wonderful wine bar in Lavapiés in Madrid, and they do great food. And I think I didn't even know if I knew they had callos. I was like drawn to them. I ordered their callos. My God, they were amazing. And a lot of people hate callos, particularly people who move to Spain who don't have that, casqueria or offal in their food, but I loved it. Pig's ears, I'm not ready for yet. I still can't do it. You like them though, Yoli.
I love them. I guess what I love about them is the garlic in them. I love the different textures. You get sort of like fatty textures, but you also get crunchiness from the cartilage again. So yummy. And I also guiltily enjoy the little bit of fat in there. It's just so very gorgeous.
Fat is flavor. It's okay.
Yeah. Well, exactly. So I go and crave for those often as well. And callos, from Casa Tony. Very yummy.
They do good callos. So yes, once you start to crave those very unique foods in a place that people when they arrive on their first day are like, oh my God, that's crazy, I'm not going to eat that. Then you're becoming a local. Who loves callos? If you're a lover of callos, put your hands up in the comments, raise your arms for callos, because welcome to the club. Okay, number 5, and we're wrapping up the food section of this video. after a big meal in New Zealand, we don't really, I mean, we do a little bit, there's not so much of a tradition of kind of going for a big walk together, but that's something, and I'm sure it's not unique to Spain, but it's something that I've learned to love here, that the assumption is that if you're gonna have this big meal, you're gonna go out, you know, to a village and have a big roast lamb thing, you're gonna go for a walk afterwards.
Spread your legs, you need to, yeah.
You do, and it's like, you know, because of the weight of the food. So I kind of crave that. It's like after the coffee, you go for the walk, or maybe you go for the walk and have the coffee on the way.
Oh,
but
that's
it's
perfect.
a lovely tradition, right?
Yes, yeah, definitely. I love it. Don't do it in summer though. You know, if it's like 35 degrees outside, don't do it.
Don't go for a walk.
But you know, it's lovely to do it. You know, in winter evenings, winter afternoons.
It's like
great.
something you do with your family, and it's just with friends, and it's really lovely. And you kind of talk, and people who might smoke, they have a cigarette, and you just kind of go for a wander, and then you come back, and I don't know, what do you do then?
Drink.
Start preparing dinner. Okay, habit number 6. I have learned to love the intimacy of a crowd. Now, let us explain. So in New Zealand, you have a lot of personal space. I believe it's the same in the United States and England, but in Spain, you don't. You know, people bump up against you in the street or in the tapas bars, and people don't really notice when you touch them in the same way. Actually, I remember waiting for the bus at one point, and there was a person, I first arrived, a person standing behind me, and I could feel them touching me, and I'm like, are they trying to rob my, you know, are they saying something, they're trying to rob me?
Are you sure or not?
I'm pretty sure, but literally they just, there's not the sense of personal space, so people will be closer to you without even noticing. It's actually something that I think people here enjoy, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you did get a little bit of a crash course during the 15M. That is Madrid's own Occupy movement that actually led to movements such as Occupy Wall Street in New York. So there were dozens of thousands of people in Puerta del Sol in Madrid.
And we just arrived a few months before.
Yeah, so that was 2011, like, you know, 15th of May 2011. So yeah, so James had to just forget about personal space and just go with the flow.
Yeah, and I kind of learned to enjoy it. You know, at first when people would bump into me in the street, and I would apologize to them, right? And they were like, didn't even know they'd bumped into me. But then, and I call it the intimacy of the crowd because I read this great book by, it's called A Literary Guide to Madrid by Elizabeth Nash. And it's a great book if you look it up. I'll link to it below. And in that book, she talks about how people in Spain love the intimacy of a crowd. And I love that idea that although there's lots of people, because you're jammed in, it's a more intimate experience.
We feel comfortable and
you kind of thrive on it, right?
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
It's wonderful. And so when you're in a tapas bar, you know, people will be close to you, but that's wonderful and that's great. The tables will be close together. And I'm not kind of shocked or surprised by that anymore, but I just kind of thrive on it because that means you can kind of start up conversations with people. You have literally more collisions with people, and that leads to interactions.
Just love it.
Love it. Totally sold on Spain, obviously. Okay, habit number 7. I have learned to be less of a pesado. Now, pesado is a Spanish word that kind of means a pain. And when I first arrived here, I would ask questions that I thought should have an answer, but soon started to learn had no answer. You know, we'd be going to a party, I'd be like, what time's it going to start? What time are the people going to arrive? What time are the people coming over to lunch? What time do you think they'll leave? What time will the party finish? Or in working with Devour Tours, we'd be like, you know, planning out our August tours and seeing who might close for August. And I'd go to the bars and I'd be like, you know, I'd go to the bars in like May and I'd be like, what are your August hours? What time do blah, 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 you know, all these kind of very specific questions. And people look at me like I'm crazy. And you told me to kind of like chill out, back off.
Chill out. Things really flow in Spain a little bit more, I think.
Help us understand why I was asking questions that don't have an answer.
Everything, I guess, here is a little bit more dynamic. Everything flows a little bit, so you need to kind of learn to be more patient, you know, because things are just going to develop, you know, in that way, you know, in a natural manner, rather than just kind of having it all pinned down, you know, from the get-go.
Yeah, and that's very weird for me when I first arrived. And in a way, now I'm more used to it. And so I almost started to think that you understand a place when you understand the questions that make sense and don't make sense in that place. Yeah. And now there's just questions I won't even ask, or I'll ask closer to the time, or I'll know there is not going to be an answer because nobody's thinking about that. And so you're just going to have to leave a little bit of a range, prepare, and then step into it.
Put it in the calendar to remember to ask again.
Ask again when you're closer. But you sometimes get frustrated at that because I've taught you a little bit of that.
I do. And I changed it, I guess, through you a little bit as well. So I get a little bit impatient sometimes, like, really, you don't know yet, whether you're opening, next week.
Yeah. So it can be a little frustrating, but I've learned to go with the flow a little more. And hey, I've learned patience. It's good, right?
Yeah.
Probably live longer.
Healthy.
Habit number 8. I'm learning to become disillusioned with politics. I feel a bit depressed about this one, but I come from a country, New Zealand, which, when it always tops the least corrupt in the world kind of countries list. And I kind of grew up with the notion that you have faith in politicians. Okay, politicians, used car salesmen, all that kind of stuff, like those jokes, but still you kind of have faith in them. But moving to Spain, things are completely different here and people's expectations are different. I remember this kind of pivotal moment when we'd just been started going out, I don't remember, but we just moved here. And we had a conversation on the metro, and I was kind of saying like, politicians aren't so bad, and you started to cry.
Well, it was just a time where there was this massive corruption cases in every main party, political party here in Spain, the PP, the PSOE, they were all like, oh my God, there was so much of that. I just couldn't believe that you trusted these people.
Well, I didn't trust the Spanish ones, but I had trust in the concept of a politician.
That's the thing. So I remember living in New Zealand, and there was this massive scandal, and that was that a member of parliament had purchased some boxers, silk boxers, with public money. Yeah. And everyone was like, oh my God, that is just so terrible. And I was just like, wow, you don't know what corruption is.
Exactly. The worst we get is silk underwear. And here it's like, up and down all over the place. So yeah, I'm becoming a little disillusioned. And, I was really surprised when Yoli started crying. But now I understand a little bit. If I met someone, they would seem so naive if they came with that perspective. Yeah. But nowadays, we haven't had a government and this is not necessarily corruption, but it's just like sort of dysfunctional politics and, horse trading and politics. We haven't had a government for months here in this country, and it's kind of all over the place, and it's very easy to get disillusioned. So I'm kind of getting a bit disillusioned with politics, which is a shame, right?
Sad one, yeah.
Becoming very Spanish, and I'm going to complain about it a lot as well.
Of course.
Habit number 9. I'm learning to love the landscape of Castilla, of the central part of Spain where Madrid is, which, I don't know, how would you describe this part of Spain, Yoli?
I guess I would say it's flat, yellow, and with the odd tree here and there.
So not the kind of landscape that you would expect someone to fall in love with. But we were on the train recently, we were in the car, and I'm looking out the train thing, and we're kind of rolling through this flat, yellow, burnt, odd tree landscape, and I'm like, it's beautiful. It's beautiful. And Yoli was like, oh my God, are you crazy? Coming from like New Zealand, so lush and everything.
So green and beautiful, yeah.
Why? No idea. When I look at that landscape though, maybe it's more that I love kind of history. It feels like a very medieval landscape. Yeah. And I always imagine Don Quixote kind of with Sancho Panza wandering through that kind of couple of hopeless people wandering through a bit of a hopeless landscape. I don't know what it is. That's very offensive.
Very romantic.
To the landscape, not necessarily Don Quixote.
No.
But, and it always looks like what it would look, when you see Renaissance paintings and you see out the window behind the Virgin, and there's always this kind of landscape of kind of flat, the odd tree, and it kind of looks like that. So it feels, I don't know, European or something. I don't know what it is, but it's not like New Zealand, right?
No, it is not. But I do enjoy it. I mean, if I'm not the one behind the wheel driving, I do love a Castilian landscape. But there's nothing more boring than driving, back from Andalusia, maybe on the A4, and just going across Ciudad Real. And there is this landscape that is so boring. If you're behind the wheel on a motorway, it's pretty samey. But I do love it if there is like a lovely sunset, or maybe it's raining, there's a storm or something. The colors are just so beautiful. It's like a Rothko painting or something, right?
Exactly. That's true. Yeah. It's just like blue, brown, the steering wheel. All right, moving
colorblind.
Exactly, colorblind. Moving right along. Okay, habit number 10 that I've learned, and now we're on to language. And so there's a bunch of kind of Spanish words and expressions that are slipping into my English that I'll use when I'm speaking English. And one of them is no, or no. So, we might say, vamos a salir, no? We're gonna go out, no? Like, aren't we? And I will say that in English, like, we're gonna go out, no? Which is weird, right?
Pretty weird, yeah.
Very weird.
Doesn't make sense,
No, I don't think it just sounds weird in English. But there's other things that are creeping in. Certain words that you learn in Spanish that just kind of only seem to really make sense in Spanish.
They're very cultural, I guess.
Exactly. So you're speaking English, but you still use those Spanish words. So one of them is lío. I use that, L-I-O, which means like hoo-ha or drama. No quiero lío. I don't want to hassle.
Trouble.
Yeah, it's just like lío. It's such a great word. Trámites trámites means like paperwork, because there's so much paperwork in Spain. It just, you got to use that word. Another one is factura, which means invoice, but you would never, I mean, factura, because there's so much hoo-ha.
Connotations,
So much Leo, right?
Yeah,
with a factura, so you've got to like use that word. So these
For the
are
trámites.
for the trámites. But yeah, those kind of words that I use all the time. When I'm speaking to English friends who also speak Spanish, we will use those little Spanish words.
Another one is pesado, actually.
Pesado, we
There
used
you
that
go.
earlier. Yeah,
Yeah.
I feel like a pain. I'm a pesado. We'll use those words when speaking English together. Have you noticed anything else, Yoli, that I do?
Yeah, well, you say bueno at the beginning of sentences. Okay. Bueno means well, but yeah, we use it a lot in Spanish, and so you might say, bueno, I didn't really mean to say that. And it's like, what?
No.
No.
I can see that. Anything else?
Oof. You say oof.
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 Oof. Yeah. Oof is like if someone tells you to do something, like oof.
Can't be bothered, or
Yeah.
oof.
So
that
okay.
sounds hard.
So do I do that when I'm speaking English?
Yeah. You do that. You do that very often, and also you've taken on this.
Okay. Like when you're speaking Spanish and you change corner in a sentence, like you're going in one direction, you kind of start saying something else, or you reframe or rephrase. You do that, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
How would that work?
You might be saying, okay, so we were going out tonight. No, but I think we're not gonna do it.
Yeah, though.
Right?
I don't even know if you can hear that, but it's a little like click on the top of the tongue. So, I mean, this is what happens when you move to a country, the language starts to come in, and language, you say, is so cultural that it kind of makes sense. All right, let's move on to habit number 11, which is also language and is a little more racy. Okay, habit number 11. I'm getting into the habit of using Spanish swear words and enjoying it. When you do something, or you hit your thumb with a hammer or something, a swear word comes out because it's cathartic. It makes you feel better.
Yeah.
But it's so loaded, a swear word, in culture and growing up and everything like that then you just like start saying a word that's in a new language. Like if I was to swear in Japanese, I wouldn't feel like catharsis because I live
you
in
need
Japan.
it to be satisfying, right?
Exactly, and it's starting to become satisfying. So I will say joder, and I will feel, which means the F word effectively in Spanish, and it feels satisfying. Not as satisfying as the F word in English, not yet, but it's building. It's building. So I'm on the way. I don't know, and for you, Yoli, is it satisfying in English to swear?
No, not so much actually. Yeah, so I'll say maybe the F word, but yeah, not so much. And I actually think I do swear way more in Spanish than in English.
Oh, really?
In English, yeah.
Interesting. Mm-hmm. That's interesting.
How about that?
That's a whole nother video, I think. But yeah, when you have that sense of so you're not finished, but maybe you've lost it because we're living in Spain for so long that my swearing catharsis in Spanish is rising, your swearing catharsis in English is dropping.
Yeah,
it's just like up and down, up and down. But yeah, what is your favorite swear word in Spanish?
You are crazy if you think I'm gonna just say it, out in the open here. No, but I'll say my second one is that one, joder.
Yeah, it's a good one. Would you guys like us to do a video on Spanish swear words? Would that be fun? I'll probably get pulled off YouTube, but we could give it a go. Guys, I would love to see your comments in the comments. If you're someone who's living in a foreign country or a country that you weren't born in, what habits are you picking up? I would love to read them, and it's a great community down there in the comments, chatting and sharing ideas and thoughts. Also, we make a lot of videos here in our home about Spanish culture, and so we'd love you to join us and watch more of them. I'll put a playlist down below, and we'll see you in the next video. Hasta luego.
Ciao.